Welcome to Gear Talks, every Thursday where we talk about everything Gears of War. Today we're looking at General RAAM and how many kills he accrued in the Gears of War franchise, originally with the first one released in Gears of War 2006. So for anyone who didn't get that, I'm a fan of dead meat, the kill counts. I'm a big fan of that. So I always thought to myself, I'd like to do that someday. I'd like to make kill counts. I'd like to talk about that. And I figured since we don't have a video discussion involving RAAM for RAAM Shadow, because I'm saving that for later on, it's the RAAM discussion series we would do for that, or General RAAM. Yeah, you kind of got to have a video on him, I'm not going to put him with Zeta, okay? He's worth more than Zeta. Maybe if I do the Delta in the future, I will put him with Delta. But for now, we're just going to talk about General RAAM and basically his body count throughout the entire franchise. How many people, creatures, things, allies, basically anyone he's killed. Starting from the very bottom and going all the way to where we have the very last moments of RAAM before he dies. So, I thought we would cover that. Just talk about all the kills and just break it down. I just figured it'd be a fun thing to do. So, let's get into it. Doing this list, I decided that we're going to go through and do everything that he is basically in front of and responsible for. So if there's any creatures involved where he's piloting them, I'm going to consider that because that creature wouldn't have done it without him involved. I'm not going to count any one of his subordinates or anyone like that kills under his name because that's not RAAM killing someone. That is another character that has killed someone. So just that's the basic breakdown for it. RAAM has to be the one or he is responsible for it. So starting off, we actually start off in the comic series for RAAM, and this is the Rise of RAAM. So we start off with the Rise of RAAM, and we're just going to go by kills. We're not going to go through the entire story of RAAM. That is a whole other video for another day, but we're just going to go down the people, places, and things that involve the kills and just go through there. So starting off, we actually have during Rise of RAAM when they are fighting off the Lambent. When they are fighting them off, we have the situation where Scourge is actually trying to speak with the Trinity, things like that, and it's a situation where while he's doing that, there's just Lambent coming in from everywhere, and RAAM is there trying to hold them off, pretty much give him time. While they're doing this, he is actually up on the top of the balcony looking over everything. A Lambent wretch is able to make its way up, and he's able to take his knife and just cleave its head clean off. That's the first kill we actually get involving RAAM when it comes to the canonical release of things. When it comes to the next kill we have, this one is a little harder to get just because of the fact that we have a situation, and I have it right in front of me for each panel just to make sure I'm looking at it correct and I have the count correct. Him along with Scourge are currently firing down on wretches that are coming in, along with 3 other locusts, 2 of them firing, and I counted 5 of them that were coming up, and there are only 4 people shooting. 1 of them have not been shot yet, so I'm assuming out of what I'm seeing here, RAAM must have at least killed 1 of them. So I'm giving him at least 1 kill for the ones that are coming up the stairway. Continuing from there, the next page on, we actually have, and we're never given a real certain name for what comes up. It looks like a mixture between a Gunker and a Lambent Berserker, but we don't get a name. I'm going to consider it's like a mix of both. That ends up coming up, and RAAM comes right after it. Again, knife in hand, just takes it right to the head, just starts wailing on it, taking it down. At one point, he gets the knife all the way in and pulls it out, bisecting its head in 2. Now, I'm giving this one to RAAM, even though on page 7, we have it where Scourge actually takes his gun, puts it right up to its head, and blows it, and just kills him. Here's the thing. Even RAAM says later on, it's already dead. I'm going to consider RAAM getting that kill, even though Scourge took the last shot, just because of the fact that it got its head cleaved in 2. We've already seen the amount of damage a Lambent can take, and I'm going to assume it was going to blow. My money's going on RAAM getting that kill. I'm giving it to RAAM instead of Scourge just because it got its head cut in half. I know it's a Lambent, but the Lambent are still they need the main parts of the body to be operational. I'm considering it dead, honestly, and I'm giving it to RAAM. After that, we actually jump to the next issue of the Gears of War Rise of RAAM series, and this is issue 2, where, and I'm going to give a very short context for this on how it happens, but the situation being of how RAAM, Srock, don't see each other, they don't see eye to eye. Srock is the current general, and basically there is a corpser that comes and attacks. When it comes in, the basic idea is this basically came from Srock. He's trying to get rid of me. So they fight off the corpse and actually take it out. They blow its legs off completely. It's still alive when RAAM goes up with his pretty much portable troika, puts it up to its head, and just kills it, just blows its head up, basically. You just see a hole from where it's basically being shot, and the eyes that are still lit up from the mask. So again, I'm going to add this one because he basically is the one who killed the Corpser at the end of the day. Following that, we actually have RAAM going off and speaking to another Locust that is in charge or holds a high rank, and this would be a Vold Karn. So, at this moment, I'm just going to bring it up quick. We're talking about the kills, but we're just going to bring this up for the moment. When it comes to rank, at the moment, Karn and RAAM hold the same rank. They are both Vold. So Vold is basically like you hold a high position, and then there's like the general and like the general, like General RAAM. General RAAM can have like people under him, and then you have like Vold, which is like a very high standing in the military. Kind of like you're in the lieutenant ranks at that point, but I digress. He goes and talks to Karn, and when they're talking, it's actually stated earlier on, there are some Locusts there that are kind of just lackadaisy, not really doing anything, and just having fun taking pot shots at Lambent in the distance. You actually have it where Karn is just like, hey, I said, like, no sway. Basically, he's saying, like, I said no just random shooting, no doing whatever you want. Just, I said, don't do that. So you have RAAM who comes over and he's talking. He looks over at the Locust and he said, did you disobey an order from your Vold? And they're like, RAAM? What? And he said, yeah, you did disobey him. And takes his knife and puts it right up under his chin, kills him right there. So RAAM is not against killing other Locusts if it means keeping the rank going. So he actually does kill a Locust. And yeah, there you go. We got another one added to the count, one of his own. Going from there, we're actually jumping to issue 3 now. If we're just going by kills, it's a little sporadic throughout the comics. But if we're going over into the next issue, we actually have it where there's a large attack from a bunch of wretches that are coming into basically the Trinity of Worms headquarters. This is just constant waves of them. RAAM is actually there looking over all of them coming in, and he looks with knife in hand and says, do you ever just get tired of fighting these guys through a scope? Like, I'm just done. And he jumps down. He's down there with all of them. Knife in, all he brought was the knife. That's all he had. And he goes running in just like that. And I had to do a lot of counting and specifics for this one. It's a little bit all over the place. The best I could come up with when I was doing my counting was I looked at about roughly, if we're going to go by the photos we have, and him being the only one down there, I counted about 10 Lambent wretches that he took out by himself. So if you're looking at the bodies flying everywhere, like you have organs, intestines flying everywhere, if you're going to count each one as their own separate panel for what he's doing, and then look at the last few about the one he's killing, I'm looking at about 10. So he went down there just by himself and killed 10 Lambent wretches barehanded. Gotta give the guy credit for that. This is all we get from him in issue 3 until we jump to issue 4. By issue 4, a lot of stuff has happened in the story. He has now been placed as general. They have finally led their attack on the surface. And this is where we get RAAM's first human kill that we ever encounter with him. The first human kill going to a William Carmine, who's actually just in the middle of retiring during the 6th week of peace that happened after the Pendulum Wars. So he's actually retiring, giving in his weapons. And this is when the sinkholes, everything down there, the E-holes are all opening up and all the Locusts are just coming out in droves. At this area where William is, this is actually where RAAM makes his appearance on the surface. This isn't the first time he's ever appeared on the surface. He has gone up and looked over the landscapes before, but this is the first time he's made his presence known to the human race. So he goes up, his first thing he does, knife in hand, he loves killing with the knife, he takes out William Carmine. His normal MO, knife right under the chin, and he just kills him right there. As the battle is continuing, the first time that the Locusts have made their presence on land to the humans in a battle, RAAM is just going through one by one by one by one. He is going out with weapons in hand, he has got his knife still, and he is just starting to decimate the cog as he goes. As he's making his way through the base fighting, he actually starts taking out some of the cog that are around. Each panel you have, he's taken out roughly either 2 or 3 of them, and he's just making his way through. I counted up with this page itself, page 14 of the comic series. He took out about 5 right here, but don't worry, there's still more cog to come. Speaking of which, the next one that ends up going is actually, it basically gets its own page for what he does here. So while they're battling, there's a cog soldier that's coming up, and he actually takes his knife and he chucks that thing like it's a throwing dagger, and he gets it right in the head. And it gives you an idea of how big the knife is compared to a normal cog soldier. This thing, it cleaves in and goes all the way through. The base of his knife is roughly the size of a head. He puts it right through, and it's some bloody stuff, man. RAAM does not mess around. He kills, and he does it for his people. You gotta give him that. You gotta give him a lot of things. The way he killing his own, the way he views things. You gotta give respect where the respect is due. The guy's work ethic is definitely there. So if you remember, I spoke earlier about the character of Srock, the previous general of the Locust Army that originally sent a corpser after him. Because of everything that happened in the Hollows, it was actually placed for RAAM being in charge, and you had Srock being placed in the front lines fighting off the Lambent that were down in the Hollows. There were a lot of things that weren't taken really well with that. For one, he's basically being sentenced to death because it's just a losing battle down there. The second thing you need to see is that Srock got demoted, did not take that well. It was basically a coup done by RAAM to get him dethroned so that RAAM was in charge and that the Queen would listen to what he was trying to say. And Srock doesn't take that well. He takes that moment to come to the surface when everything's happening, and he fights RAAM one-on-one. Srock actually fights with like a big old like halberd weapon he has here, and he's fighting against RAAM, and RAAM is a lot smaller than Srock. Srock is like uber big. If you had to ever compare the largest, like most able-bodied Locust that wasn't a berserker, it probably would go to Srock. And as the battle's going, it's kind of going a little bit back and forth, but you can tell Srock has the upper hand most definitely. And you have it where earlier on in the series, I believe it was in issue 3, RAAM is actually speaking with other members of the Locust. They, I believe, are Theron guards. Theron guards that fight alongside or guard for the Queen, and they see it as RAAM being correct in what he's trying to do. So when everything is going on here, 2 Therons shoot off and get him with a torque bow in the back. Both those bolts explode outwards, revealing Srock's inner chest cavity. Now, it's hard to take this as what happens here. The best I can say, by the look of how the comic panels go, by the look of Srock's face, and by the look of what's done, I'm going to give this kill to RAAM. Because it seems by the look on the faces, it seems like when he gets everything ripped out, I'm assuming he's still alive and it's a beating heart. If the heart is beating, I kind of got to give the kill to whoever stopped the beating, and RAAM ripped it out. I kind of got to give it to RAAM. Even, like, online sources are also kind of saying, like, it looks like RAAM was the one who did it. I'm willing to give it to RAAM. I think it's well-deserved. He's ripped out a man's heart, or a Locust heart. Again, give respect where it's due. This actually finishes up the Rise of RAAM comic series for everything involving RAAM when it comes to his kills. The next time we see RAAM and the next time he gets more kills under his belt is actually during RAAM's Shadow. During the story of Zeta, this is where RAAM comes in and he is assisting and in charge of basically having the Krill Storm attack Alima. So once he appears on the scene, we actually play as RAAM. This is a very interesting situation when it comes to the counting I was doing here, because it's the situation of how do you count what happens here. I went through and counted every single enemy that RAAM goes against in chapters 2, 4, and 5. Chapters 1 and 3, he is not fighting anyone, he does not kill anybody. So chapters 2, 4, and 5, I had to decide, how am I going to measure this? The best way I could measure this situation was, I took it as, RAAM comes up to the surface, along with the unidentified Theron guard, that is with him that can control Krill also, and 2 Mauler elites. There's also the Thumper, but the Thumper does not fight, he's just there to summon the Cedars. So the best I came up with was, we're going to give him the bare minimum I thought was the best answer we could do. So I decided to just cut everything. He gets 25% of everything that was killed for each chapter. I thought that was the best way to put it, and that's how I was kind of debating and looking at how I was going to divvy it all up. No matter what, he gets a quarter of the kills. I think that's just the fairest way. It's not too high, not too low. It's like, if he did his fair share, that's what we're looking at. I do believe he probably could have killed more, but I can't give a general accurate answer without cutting it this way. With Chapter 2 in RAAM's Shadow, now it's pretty hard to just give the lowdown of what's going on, but basically, for Chapter 2, he rises up from the ground with the E-hole, he comes out with everyone else, brings the Thumper, and their job is to place Cedars throughout the city in order to have them ink out the sky so that they are able to have the Krill Storm attack. While they're going through and attacking, the COG soldiers are still there that are part of evacuations are trying to hold him back. A lot of the areas we see him go through are also the areas we travel through when we're with Zeta. So he's just sitting there flipping cars, killing, sending his Krill out. He's picking people up by the head and just slicing them. He's just killing. It's RAAM. Him and his knife, Him and his krill, it's just what he does. He does not have a gun with him for any of it. I'm assuming he's like, humans ain't that big of a deal compared to the Lambent. I can handle this. So the best I could tally up when it comes to Chapter 2 for kills when it came to RAAM, for his portion of killing, the entire chapter for Chapter 2, I gave him 17 kills he ended up. All of them being COG soldiers, 16 COG soldiers, one of them being a COG pilot, but 17 overall for what he got for Chapter 2. We have nothing from Chapter 3, but I can tell you in Chapter 4, RAAM is at it again. He's going through and they're planting more cedars, and they're basically just taking out COG as they go. So while they're going, they're fighting through, taking out COG after COG after COG. Again, I'm just giving him a quarter for this chapter. They take out a lot. Chapter 4 was really heavy on like the beginning portion that come through. It's not as long with so many spread out COG soldiers, but there is a lot more condensed in the beginning. So they finally do make it through to the very, very end. We learn later on in the game, and we learn right here when it happens, the Onyx Guard have also made their appearance on the field. Now the Onyx Guard, I'm just going to give a quick heads up for this so you know how I'm going to measure this for kills. I'm going to consider the Onyx Guard something separate from COG soldiers, just because when it comes to the Onyx Guard, a soldier cannot become, just by rising up through the ranks, they cannot become an Onyx Guard. The Onyx Guard, the only two ways you can enter into the Onyx Guard are going through the Academy or being hand-chosen by the Onyx Guard as a COG soldier. You cannot rank up into Onyx Guard in the military. It's just not possible. If that was the case, many characters would have already become Onyx Guard. So for this one, Onyx is going to be measured separately from the actual COG. It's just going to be its own little thing. So I counted here, when it came to the COG soldiers in Chapter 4, we had 12 of them that were killed by RAAM or by upper or lower amounts, but we're going with 12 just as the median. And we're looking at, when it comes to the Onyx Guard, his share of it all, we're looking at about 3. Okay. Going to Chapter 5 now, this is where it's a lot easier because a lot of the main things you're looking at, the main things through Zeta's eyes, you see RAAM like dealing with things, or you see him like in the area. It's not like just a guesstimation of what he killed. So when it comes to the first kill in Chapter 5, this is actually outside the orphanage. When the Locusts are making their way into fight, everyone's holding everyone off. He originally goes to kill Jace, but Jace actually kicks his way out. I don't even think kicks his way out's the right way. He was holding Jace, and Valera got involved with a chainsaw to the side, dropped him, and then with his knife put it right through Alicia Valera's torso, killing her right there. Eerily similar to the same way we'll see another kill in a little while. He kills Valera at the very beginning of Chapter 5. Continuing from there, once Zeta and Jace have made their way through and gotten their way over to fighting the unidentified Theron Guard, after that is done, RAAM is actually riding his personal Reaver at the time, which also has krill controlling capabilities. He goes through and actually takes out a COG soldier that's actually up over on the overlook of where they are for like the under bridge or the under area for where they fought the Theron, and he gets killed and crushed by RAAM. Going on from there, the last one that ends up getting killed throughout the entire RAAM Shadow story is actually a COG soldier that was probably with the evac team that was coming to get the orphanage people. He was actually killed off by RAAM also. RAAM was just flying by. He gets killed. That's another one for RAAM. This next one he didn't kill anybody in. This is actually the Gears of War story, Operation Midnight. He did not kill anyone in Operation Midnight. I figured I'd bring it up because we've mentioned every time he's appeared. I might as well mention, like, yes, he was in Operation Midnight. He was going there to take down the Team Midnight, take them out and kill them all. He was going after the bridge there. It did not work. His people were killed. He didn't get a kill in himself, and he was able to escape through the river. So, little fun thing. Just, yeah, he was a part of Operation Midnight, and just nothing happened. He was just there. Going on from there, the last thing we have involving him, the last title, game, story, book, is actually Gears of War, the original and Ultimate Edition. I bring up both just because they're both basically the same. There's only one difference, which we're going to cover in a few moments, his final kill. But before the final kill, we have Min Young Kim. So, we all know how it goes. We've talked about it a bajillion times here. He kills Min Young Kim outside the Tomb of the Unknowns. He goes in, and thanks to Ultimate Edition, you got a whole lot more backing to this fight. Because Kim recognizes him, goes into fight, he gets stomped completely, and he also gets killed the exact same way Valera got killed. Dagger right through the torso. It's... repetition, you know what I mean? Is just keeping it the same every time. The last and final kill that RAAM ever had before he died actually goes to an unidentified and unnamed COG soldier. They take basically like a hostage, not even a hostage, just like they find a living gear that's still alive, and they get his helmet, and RAAM's listening in to see what the next plan for Delta is, and he hears what's going on. He crushes it in his hand, and he throws it to the side. Now, depending on the original to the Ultimate Edition, it's going to be up to you to decide what is canon and what isn't for how this individual dies. In the original, he pulls out a Boltok he has on him, and he just blows his head off right there. He just shoots him. He just kills him. That's just how it goes. That is how the original Gears of War goes. In the new one, after he's listened to the helmet, crushes it, he walks away, doesn't even bat an eye at the soldier. While he's walking away, just hand on the head, snaps his neck right there. Just all he does. So it's up to you which one you want to take. Either way, this individual still dies no matter what. So if you would prefer Boltok or neck snap, it's all up to you. The guy's dead. There's not really any changing that fact. How many kills did RAAM get throughout his entire stint in the Gears of War franchise? How about we go and take a look at the numbers? Okay, so I just wanted to do one last parody. I figured I did like an opening, I might as well do the end. So I do have a breakdown for everything involving RAAM when it comes to the characters, the enemies, the allies that he killed when it came to the story. So by what I counted and everything that we were looking at, he got 60 kills throughout his entire showing in Gears of War. Now obviously he's killed many more, but we just never saw it. This is just what we have experienced with him. With the breakdown going, 13 Lambent, 3 Locust, 41 COG, and 3 Onyx Guard members. Which gives, I made a pie chart, it looks pretty nice I think, which gives us like a very, like, it looks like a rotting pie, kind of, with radioactive gook in it, but it looks like a radioactive blueberry pie, and I kind of like it. So, I want to thank everyone for watching, I want to thank everyone for making this possible, thank the patrons for making this possible, and when we come back, we'll have our final character in the Zeta Squad discussion series. I can't wait. Whenever I get towards the end of doing any discussion series, I start to get mini feelings of burnout because I've talked about the same situation just with different characters over and over and over again. But we're almost to the end. It's going to be fun. It's a character that I actually am kind of excited to talk about because they have a large stint in the comic series where they're considered the quote-unquote main character. I'll see you guys next time for another Gear Talk. Later.